So we ask ourselves the question, who's the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? You know, the disciples, they asked Jesus that. They wanted to know who the greatest was in the kingdom of heaven. And you know, Jesus told us who the greatest prophet was. Jesus said in Matthew chapter 11 and verse 11, he says, "Truly I say to you, among those born of women, there has not arisen anyone greater than John the Baptist, yet the one who is the least in the kingdom of heaven is greater than he." So Jesus said of John the Baptist, say he's the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. So think about that for just a minute. And here John the Baptist is. Who's John the Baptist? He is the forerunner of the Messiah. He is the one that is to go out before the Messiah, make straight the paths of the king. And you know, that's what people did back in that day. And if a king was coming into town, somebody was coming ahead of them, and they'd make sure the roads were cleared. They'd make sure the roads are smooth. They'd make sure there's no obstacles in the way, and they just shout out, "Hey, the king is coming. Y'all better get ready. The king's coming into town. Let's get these roads ready. Let's get these paths ready. Let's make straight the paths of the king." And that's what John the Baptist did. And he went out there in the Jordan River, and he was baptizing people. And so everybody was coming to see John. And I mean, he had a church growth explosion, and he could have written a bestseller book of, you know, how to grow a church out there on the Jordan River. And everybody, even the Pharisees, were coming out there to see what in the world is going on out there. And John was just baptizing everybody. And, you know, just his numbers was just exploding as this growth was coming out. Everybody, and even Jesus, came out there to see him. But you know what? When John saw Jesus, you know what John did? John said, "I'm not even worthy to untie your sandals. I need to be baptized by you. You are so much greater than I am." And then Jesus came and Jesus said, "No, you need to baptize me to fulfill righteousness." And so John was obedient to Jesus. He didn't understand it all, but he was obedient to Jesus, and he baptized Jesus. And then you know what happened? Jesus' ministry started. And when Jesus' ministry started, people stopped following John and they started following Jesus. And now here it is that nobody's following John anymore. Everybody's following Jesus. But guess what? Jesus is the one that John went out to tell everybody he's coming. And so when John's disciples came up to Jesus and said, "Hey, John, nobody's following you anymore. Nobody's paying attention to you anymore. Everybody's following out after this Jesus of Nazareth." And John said in John chapter 3 and verse 30, he said, "He must increase and I must decrease." You see, that is the very mindset and the attitude of why Jesus said that John was the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. You say, if you want to even be greater than John, yet the one who is the least in the kingdom of heaven is greater than he. So to become the greatest, you need to become the least. You need to say, you know what? He must increase, Jesus must increase, and I must decrease. It's not about me. It's about Jesus. It's not about my wants, my hearts, my desires, my goals, my visions. And it's not my church. It's his. It's Jesus. And only Jesus. Paul told us, he said, if anybody had anything worth boasting about, he did. I mean, he had the pedigree, he had the education, he had it all. But he said, I count it all rubbish. All of it. For the sake of knowing Jesus. Count it all rubbish. I'll become the least. And I'll become lesser so that he can become greater. You see, all throughout the Gospels, Jesus is telling us he who is first is last, and he who is last is first. He who is the greatest is the least, but he who is the least is the greatest. We need to put ourselves last, and we need to put Jesus first. And then and only then are we going to be great in the kingdom. And it's not us being great, but it's allowing Jesus to be great within us. You see, that's what Jesus has called us to do. He's called the least of these, the foolish things of this world, to confound the wise. Because it's not about us. And by the way, it never has been. It's about Jesus. Jesus and Jesus alone. So make your life not about you, but about Him. And God will bless it. God will honor it, because you'll be honoring Him. This is good news, friends. Good news worthy of sharing. So would you share it so others can hear it and others can receive it when they believe it?